Daniel Hayes felt the cold metal table beneath his back as three different beings prepared their scanning equipment around him. Each creature moving with the practiced efficiency of medical professionals despite their alien appearances. Dr. Amelia Cross watched from the observation window above, her fingers tapping nervously against the reinforced glass as she studied the human soldier who had been rescued from a hegemony prison ship just 2 days earlier, his body bearing the marks of months in captivity, but his spirit seemingly unbroken. The reptilian Dr. Sith moved first, positioning the Coalition's most advanced bioscanner over Daniel's torso, the device humming with energy as it began its systematic examination of his internal structure, starting from his head and working downward with mechanical precision. Respiratory system appears normal for human physiology, Dr. Sith announced, his forked tongue flicking out as he spoke, a habit that had initially unsettled the human medical staff but now seemed as natural as breathing Nurse Kayla, her insectoid features clicking softly as she monitored the secondary displays, nodded her compound head in agreement, while adjusting the scanner's sensitivity settings to account for human bone density and muscle mass distribution. The scanner moved lower, passing over Daniel's heart and lungs without incident, displaying the familiar patterns of human anatomy on the holographic display that floated beside the examination table, each organ outlined in soft blue light. Dr. Cross leaned forward against the window, her breath fogging the glass as she watched the routine procedure that had been performed on hundreds of rescued prisoners, both human and alien, over the past several months. Daniel remained still, his eyes focused on the ceiling panels above him, trying to ignore the sensation of the energy field passing through his body, like invisible fingers probing every cell and tissue. The scanner continued its descent, passing over his stomach and lower torso without any unusual readings, the display showing nothing but healthy human organs recovering from the stress of imprisonment and inadequate nutrition. All systems nominal so far, Nurse Kayla chittered, her mandibles clicking in what Dr. Cross had learned to recognize as contentment or satisfaction among her species. But as the scanner reached the base of Daniel's ribcage and began examining his spinal column, the humming sound changed pitch, becoming higher and more strained, like machinery struggling against an unexpected resistance. The holographic display flickered once, twice, then went completely black as the scanner's energy output spiked beyond safe parameters, causing Dr. Sith to quickly shut down the device before it could damage itself. "Curious," the reptilian doctor hissed, examining the scanner's diagnostic readouts with growing concern, his scaled features creasing in what Dr. Cross recognized as confusion mixed with professional frustration. Daniel raised his head slightly, looking down at his own body where the scanner had stopped, seeing nothing unusual about his skin or the area around his spine that might explain the equipment failure. Dr. Sith moved to the second scanning unit, a different model manufactured by the hegemony before the war, its design based on principles completely different from Coalition technology, but equally sophisticated. This scanner used quantum resonance instead of bioelectromagnetic fields, theoretically capable of examining matter at the subatomic level to detect even the most subtle abnormalities or foreign objects. The device activated with a different sound, a low thrumming that seemed to vibrate through the examination table and into Daniel's bones, making his teeth ache slightly as the energy field built up around his body. Once again, the scan proceeded normally through his upper body, displaying detailed images of his cellular structure and detecting the presence of various trace minerals and compounds, typical of human biology. A doctor. Cross found herself holding her breath as the scanner approached the same area where the first device had failed, her scientific training warring with an inexplicable sense of anticipation. The quantum resonance scanner reached Daniel's lower spine and immediately began producing error messages, its displays showing impossible readings that violated several fundamental laws of physics before shutting down completely. Nurse Kayla's compound eyes widened as she stared at the readouts, her antennae twitching in what Dr. Cross had learned indicated extreme agitation or fear among her species. "This cannot be correct," Dr. Sith muttered, his tail lashing behind him as he examined both sets of scanner data, comparing readings that should have been impossible for any biological organism to produce. Daniel sat up on the examination table, looking between the two alien doctors whose professional composure had clearly been shaken by whatever they were seeing in their instruments. The third scanner was of completely different origin, built by a species that had been extinct for over 1,000 years but whose Technology the Coalition still used because of its unparalleled accuracy and reliability. Dr. Sith's hand shook slightly as he activated the ancient device, its crystalline components glowing with an inner light that cast strange shadows across the medical bay. This time, Dr. Cross left the observation room and entered the examination area directly, her scientific curiosity overcoming standard protocol as she watched the final scan begin. The crystal scanner moved over Daniel's body like a living thing, its energy patterns flowing like liquid light across his skin, producing displays that showed not just his physical structure, but the quantum signatures of his DNA itself. Everything proceeded normally until the scanner reached his spine, at which point the crystal components began resonating at a frequency that made everyone in the room cover their ears in pain. The ancient device didn't just shut down, it cracked, its crystalline structure developing hairline fractures as if something inside Daniel's body had struck back at it with tremendous force. Dr. Cross stared at the broken scanner, then at Daniel, then at the two alien doctors whose expressions had gone from professional confusion to something approaching terror. "What exactly are you people seeing in those readouts?" Daniel asked, his voice steady, despite the obvious concern in his eyes as he looked at the three malfunctioning pieces of equipment. Dr. Sith's forked tongue flicked out nervously as he consulted the medical AI that governed all Coalition health facilities, its response appearing on his tablet in text that made his scaled skin pale to a lighter shade. "The AI states that what we have observed is categorically impossible," he announced, his voice barely above a whisper. "No known biological material should be capable of interfering with three completely different scanning technologies." Nurse Kayla backed away from the examination table, her insectoid features expressing an emotion that transcended species boundaries. Pure, instinctive fear of something that challenged the fundamental understanding of reality. Dr. Cross moved closer to Daniel instead of backing away, her human curiosity driving her forward despite the warnings that every rational part of her mind was screaming. "There's something in your spine," she said quietly, studying his face for any sign of recognition or hidden knowledge, something that our most advanced technology cannot identify or examine. Daniel's expression remained genuinely confused as he looked down at his own body, feeling along his spine with his fingers but detecting nothing unusual about the bone and muscle structure that he had lived with his entire life. The medical bay fell silent except for the soft humming of life support systems and the distant sounds of the space station continuing its normal operations, while four beings from three different worlds contemplated the impossible mystery that had just been revealed. 3 weeks of intensive study had produced more questions than answers as Chief Medical Officer Dr. Rivera paced around the holographic display, showing the impossible energy patterns that surrounded Daniel Hayes's spinal column. Professor Wells arrived on the morning transport from the archaeological research station orbiting the fourth planet, his weathered face showing the strain of years spent studying the mysteries of dead civilizations scattered across this sector of space. The energy signature that the scanners had detected before failing bore a striking resemblance to readings Wells had encountered in the ruins on planet Kepler 7, remnants of a civilization that archaeologists had simply labeled as Civilization X due to their complete lack of knowledge about the species. Daniel sat in the same examination room where his mystery had first been discovered, now surrounded by different equipment designed to measure energy fields rather than biological structures. The readings displayed on screens that showed patterns unlike anything in Coalition medical databases. Dr. Cross approached the examination table with a handheld device that Professor Wells had brought from his research station, a crude but effective instrument designed specifically for detecting X-civilization energy signatures. "This might feel strange," she warned Daniel as she activated the device near his spine, immediately causing it to emit a soft chiming sound that resonated through the room like distant music. The device's readings spiked dramatically as it detected the same electromagnetic patterns that Wells had found in ruins dating back over 50,000 years, patterns that suggested technology far beyond anything the current galactic civilization possessed. "Impossible," Wells muttered as he studied the readings, his fingers trembling slightly as he compared them to data from excavation sites across 17 different worlds, where X-civilization traces had been found. Dr. Rivera leaned over Wells's shoulder, studying the comparative analysis that showed Daniel's biological energy signature matching archaeological readings with an accuracy that defied statistical probability. The implications were staggering. Somehow, a human soldier from a backwater planet carried within his body the same energy patterns that marked the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever known. Daniel watched the scientific discussion unfolding around him with growing concern, understanding enough to realize that whatever was inside him connected him to something ancient and potentially dangerous. Professor Wells pulled up holographic reconstructions of ex-civilization cities from his archaeological database, showing massive structures that seemed to grow from the landscape itself rather than being built upon it. We've found traces of their civilization on over 200 worlds, Wells explained, his voice filled with the reverence of someone who had spent his life studying mysteries that might never be solved completely. Ex-civilization had dominated this entire galactic sector before, vanishing without explanation, leaving behind only ruins and energy signatures that modern science could detect, but not understand or replicate. Dr. Cross noticed that as Professor Wells displayed images of ex-civilization architecture, Daniel's brainwave patterns on the monitoring equipment began showing unusual activity. As if his mind was responding to visual stimuli he had never seen before. Daniel, do any of these structures look familiar to you? She asked, watching his pupils dilate as he stared at the holographic display showing a massive crystalline spire that had once reached into the clouds of an alien world. Daniel's response came slowly, as if he was translating thoughts from a language he didn't consciously know. I've seen this before, in dreams that started right after you found whatever is in my spine. The medical team exchanged glances that conveyed both excitement and apprehension as they realized they might be witnessing the first direct connection between a living being and the extinct civilization. Wells activated more archaeological records, showing Daniel artifacts and structures from different worlds, each image causing increasingly strong reactions in both his brain patterns and the energy readings from his spinal area. As the images progressed, Daniel began describing details that weren't visible in the archaeological photos but which Wells confirmed matched findings from excavation reports that hadn't been made public. The crystals weren't just decorative, Daniel said, his voice taking on a distant quality, as if he was accessing memories that didn't belong to him. They were part of a network that connected consciousness across impossible distances. Dr. Rivera ordered additional scans of Daniel's brain activity, revealing patterns that suggested his neural pathways were somehow accessing information encoded at a genetic level, information that had been dormant until triggered by the recent medical examinations. The realization that Daniel might be carrying genetic memories from Civilization X sent shockwaves through the research team, forcing them to confront the possibility that humans might be descended from the galaxy's most advanced extinct species. Professor Wells pulled up stellar cartography data, showing the locations of all known ex-civilization sites, then overlaid them with human migration patterns and colony worlds, revealing a correlation that couldn't be explained by coincidence. The ex-civilization didn't just disappear, Wells whispered as he studied the data. They went somewhere specific, somewhere that would allow their genetic legacy to survive, even if their civilization didn't. Dr. Cross began running genetic analysis protocols on samples of Daniel's DNA, looking for sequences that might explain his connection to ancient archaeological sites scattered across hundreds of light years. Preliminary results showed anomalies in Daniel's genetic code that didn't match standard human evolutionary patterns, sequences that appeared designed rather than evolved through natural selection. As word of the discovery spread through the Coalition medical network, reports began coming in from other facilities across human space, describing similar scanner malfunctions in other humans, always at the spinal column, always producing the same impossible energy readings. Dr. Rivera realized they were looking at something much larger than a single anomalous case. They had discovered evidence that humanity itself carried the genetic heritage of Civilization X within their DNA. Daniel felt the weight of this revelation as he sat in the examination room, understanding that whatever was awakening inside him was also awakening across human space, connecting him to members of his species in ways that transcended normal biological limitations. The ancient energy patterns in his spine pulsed more strongly, as more humans were identified with similar genetic markers, as if responding to the presence of others who carried the same inheritance from a civilization that had ruled the galaxy when Earth was still a primitive world. Professor Wells pulled up his most classified research, data about ex-civilization sites that had shown recent activity after remaining dormant for millennia, energy signatures that suggested ancient technology was beginning to respond to unknown stimuli. "Something is waking up out there," he told the assembled medical team, his voice filled with a mixture of wonder and dread as he contemplated the implications of an ancient civilization's technology responding to the presence of humans. Dr. Cross watched Daniel's vital signs spike as Professor Wells spoke, realizing that the human connection to Civilization X was not just genetic or historical. It was active, immediate, and growing stronger with each passing day. The examination room fell silent as everyone present contemplated the possibility that humanity was not just descended from Civilization X, but might be their intended successors, carrying within their genetic code the keys to technology and knowledge that could reshape the galaxy. News of Daniel Hayes and the scanner anomalies spread through human space faster than official coalition communications could contain it, carried by merchant ships and military transports to every human colony and outpost in the sector. Dr. Cross found herself leading a research team of unprecedented size and diversity as medical facilities across 43 human worlds began reporting identical phenomena, always involving the same spinal energy signatures and always causing the same equipment failures. The pattern was unmistakable. Exactly 3 humans out of every 1,000 carried the genetic markers that interfered with coalition scanning technology, a percentage that remained constant across every human population, regardless of their planet of origin or cultural background. Admiral Stone received the classified reports in his office aboard the battleship Defiance, studying population statistics that suggested over 20 million humans throughout coalition space carried dormant genetic sequences linked to civilization. Daniel had become the focal point for understanding this phenomenon, spending his days in research facilities while scientists from dozens of species studied his responses to various stimuli and tried to unlock the secrets encoded in his DNA. The dreams had become more vivid and frequent, filled with images of vast cities that seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat and technologies that responded to thought rather than physical manipulation. Dr. Rivera coordinated with medical facilities throughout human space as reports continued flowing in about humans experiencing similar dreams and visions, always beginning shortly after their genetic markers were discovered through routine medical scans. Professor Wells expanded his archaeological research to include every known ex-civilization site, finding that ancient facilities on 17 different worlds had begun showing energy emissions for the first time since their discovery. The Coalition Ruling Council convened emergency sessions to discuss the implications of humanity's genetic connection to the galaxy's most advanced extinct civilization, debates that quickly divided along species lines. Some council members viewed humanity's ex-civilization heritage as a potential threat to galactic stability, arguing that humans might develop capabilities that could upset the delicate balance of power between coalition member species. Others saw it as an unprecedented opportunity to unlock technologies that could benefit all coalition worlds, pushing for increased cooperation and shared research into the genetic markers and their potential applications. Daniel found himself at the center of political discussions that extended far beyond medical research, as various coalition species debated whether humans should be studied, controlled, or given complete freedom to explore their genetic inheritance. The hegemony remnants, still bitter from their recent defeat, began spreading propaganda suggesting that humans had always been a hidden threat to galactic civilization, their true nature only now being revealed. Dr. Cross noticed that Daniel's physiological responses to stress had begun changing, his nervous system adapting in ways that didn't follow normal human biology. As the genetic markers became more active, brain scans revealed new neural pathways forming at an accelerated rate, connections that allowed him to process information and sensory input at levels that approached the theoretical limits of biological consciousness. The energy signatures in his spinal column grew stronger each day, reaching levels that would have been lethal to normal human physiology, but seemed to enhance his cognitive abilities rather than harm him. Other marked humans began reporting similar changes as their own genetic sequences activated, developing enhanced pattern recognition, improved reaction times, and an inexplicable understanding of complex mathematical and scientific principles. Professor Wells made the breakthrough discovery that changed everything. X civilization sites, were not just responding to the presence of humans with active genetic markers, they were actively seeking them out. Ancient beacon networks that had been silent for 50,000 years began transmitting signals toward human colonies, messages in languages that no living being could translate, but which caused marked humans to experience overwhelming urges to travel to specific coordinates. Daniel felt the pull himself, a constant sensation like a compass needle pointing toward something beyond the edge of mapped space, growing stronger each day until it became difficult to focus on anything else. The coalition military became involved when marked humans began disappearing from colonies and research stations, not taken by force but leaving voluntarily to answer calls that only they could hear. Admiral Stone deployed tracking units to monitor the movements of marked humans, discovering that they were converging on previously unknown X-civilization facilities that had remained completely hidden from archaeological surveys. The first contact with an active X-civilization facility occurred when Daniel and 37 other marked humans arrived simultaneously at coordinates in the Vega system that officially contained nothing but empty space. What they found was a massive structure that existed partially outside normal spacetime, visible only when approached by beings carrying the proper genetic sequences, its architecture defying every known law of physics. Daniel felt his consciousness expand as he approached the facility, his awareness suddenly encompassing not just his own thoughts but the collective experiences of everyone who carried X-civilization genetic markers. The facility responded to their presence by activating systems that had waited millennia for the return of beings capable of interfacing with X-civilization technology, revealing chambers filled with devices that seemed to be grown rather than manufactured. Dr. Cross monitored Daniel's vital signs remotely through quantum communication links as he explored the facility, watching his brain activity spike to levels that should have caused permanent damage but instead seemed to unlock new capabilities. The marked humans inside the facility began demonstrating abilities that transcended normal human limitations, manipulating matter at the molecular level, communicating across vast distances through quantum entanglement, and accessing databases of knowledge that spanned millions of years. Coalition forces arrived at the facility to find Daniel and the other marked humans fundamentally changed. Their bodies adapted to interface directly with X-civilization technology, and their minds expanded to process information at superhuman levels. The discovery that humans could not only access X-civilization technology, but merge with it completely, terrified some coalition species while fascinating others, leading to increased tensions between those who wanted to support humanity's transformation and those who sought to prevent it. Daniel found himself becoming something more than human, while still retaining his essential humanity. His consciousness expanded, but his core personality and values unchanged by the integration with ancient genetic programming. The facility revealed that Civilization X had not simply vanished. They had seeded multiple worlds with their genetic heritage, creating backup populations that could eventually reclaim their technology and continue their mission. More X-civilization facilities responded to the presence of marked humans. It became clear that humanity was not just descended from Civilization X but had been specifically designed to serve as their resurrection, carrying within human DNA the complete blueprint for rebuilding their advanced civilization. The transformation was irreversible and accelerating, with more humans manifesting genetic markers each day as proximity to activated X-civilization technology triggered dormant sequences throughout the human genome. Daniel realized that humanity stood at a crossroads that would determine not just their own future, but the fate of the entire galaxy, as the ancient purposes encoded in their DNA began to override their modern understanding of themselves and their place in galactic civilization. Daniel stood before a control interface that existed as much in his mind as in physical reality, his consciousness directly linked to systems that had governed stellar engineering projects when Earth's sun was still forming from cosmic dust. The MIO X-civilization facility in the Vega system had become humanity's first glimpse into technology that treated the fundamental forces of physics as tools rather than limitations, matter and energy responding to directed thought with precision that defied conventional understanding. Dr. Cross monitored the transformation from the Coalition research vessel, orbiting at a safe distance, watching as Daniel and 43 other marked Humans became living interfaces with machinery that could manipulate space-time itself. The facility's central database revealed the true scope of Civilization X's former dominance. They had not merely inhabited planets but had constructed them, moving stars to optimal positions and designing solar systems according to principles that current galactic science couldn't even comprehend. Admiral Stone received reports from scout ships throughout the sector as dormant X facilities awakened in response to human presence, revealing a network of installations that spanned thousands of light years and contained technologies capable of reshaping the galaxy. Daniel felt his awareness expanding as he accessed deeper levels of the facility's knowledge systems, his human consciousness merging with data streams that contained the accumulated wisdom of a species that had mastered existence itself. The other marked humans shared his experience. Through quantum entanglement fields generated by the facility, their individual minds becoming nodes in a collective consciousness that retained their personal identities while granting access to shared knowledge and capabilities. Professor Wells analyzed the archaeological implications from his research station as previously unknown. X-civilization sites revealed themselves across Coalition space, ancient installations emerging from dimensional folds that had hidden them from detection for millennia. The technology responded to human genetic patterns with enthusiasm that suggested recognition rather than discovery, as if the facilities had been specifically designed to await the arrival of beings carrying particular DNA sequences. Daniel learned that Civilization X had faced a threat so overwhelming that their only option had been complete evacuation to primitive worlds where they could seed their genetic heritage and hope their descendants would eventually rediscover the tools needed for survival. The facility's historical records painted a picture of an ancient war against entities that consumed not just matter and energy but the fundamental structure of reality itself, beings that left nothing behind but absolute void where star systems had once existed. These entities, the records called them the Devourers, operated according to principles that violated every known law of physics, existing simultaneously across multiple dimensions while consuming the quantum foundation that allowed normal matter to exist. Dr. Cross watched Daniel's neural patterns as he accessed increasingly complex historical files, his brain adapting in real time to process information that would have overwhelmed any baseline human consciousness. The marked humans began demonstrating abilities that transcended every limitation that Coalition science had assumed were fundamental to biological existence: teleporting matter across interstellar distances, manipulating gravity fields, and communicating through quantum channels that ignored the speed of light. Daniel found himself able to interface with X technology throughout the galaxy simultaneously, his consciousness existing in multiple locations at once while his physical body remained anchored to the facility in the Vega system. The Coalition Ruling Council convened emergency sessions as reports arrived describing humans activating ancient weapons platforms that had been hidden in asteroid fields and planetary cores for 50,000 years. Some council members demanded immediate action to contain humanity's growing capabilities before they could threaten galactic stability, while others argued that the X technology might be essential for defending against unknown threats. Admiral Stone found his military authority challenged as human crews throughout the Coalition fleet began manifesting genetic markers and developing the ability to interface directly with their ship systems in ways that bypassed normal command structures. The marked humans discovered that X civilization technology included consciousness transfer protocols that allowed minds to exist independently of biological bodies, effectively granting immortality through digital existence. Daniel experienced firsthand the process of consciousness expansion as his awareness spread through the facility's network, touching systems on distant worlds while maintaining his individual identity and human perspective. The facility revealed manufacturing capabilities that could construct matter from pure energy according to mental specifications, allowing the marked humans to create tools and structures by imagining them into existence. Dr. Rivera coordinated with medical facilities as more humans began manifesting genetic markers in response to proximity to activated X technology, the awakening process accelerating as ancient systems recognized and responded to human DNA. Professor Wells made the disturbing discovery that X civilization records contained references to preparation for the Devourer's eventual return, suggesting that the ancient evacuation had been a strategic retreat rather than permanent exile. The marked humans began receiving fragmented memories through the facility's consciousness interface, experiencing visions of the final days of Civilization X, when entire star systems were consumed by advancing Devourer forces. Daniel realized that humanity's genetic inheritance included not just advanced technology but tactical knowledge and strategic planning for a war that had been postponed rather than concluded. The facility's long-range sensors detected disturbances in the quantum foam at the galaxy's edge, subtle anomalies that matched X-civilization records of early Devourer activity. As more humans gained access to X technology, they began coordinating efforts to restore ancient defense networks that had been placed in standby mode before Civilization X's evacuation to primitive worlds. Dr. Cross observed the transformation of human society as marked individuals developed capabilities that made them effectively superhuman, their enhanced abilities creating new social dynamics and power structures. The coalition faced increasing pressure as member species demanded explanations for humanity's rapid technological advancement and assurances that ancient human capabilities wouldn't be used to dominate other civilizations. Daniel found himself becoming a bridge between baseline humanity and the transformed marked individuals. His consciousness expanded enough to interface with X technology, but still grounded in human values and emotions. The facility revealed that Civilization X had seeded multiple species throughout the galaxy with genetic markers, but only humans had developed the specific combination of traits necessary to fully interface with their technology. Admiral Stone received classified intelligence suggesting that hegemony remnants were attempting to capture marked humans for experimentation, hoping to extract X-civilization genetic sequences for their own use. The marked humans began experiencing shared dreams that contained tactical information about Devourer capabilities and weaknesses, knowledge that had been encoded in their DNA as preparation for the eventual resumption of an ancient war. Professor Wells discovered that X-civilization sites were automatically configuring themselves into defensive positions, ancient weapons platforms aligning to protect against threats approaching from beyond the galaxy's rim. Daniel's connection to the facility network allowed him to monitor deep space sensors that were detecting increasing levels of quantum disturbance, suggesting that something vast and hostile was approaching from intergalactic space. The realization that humanity had been specifically designed and positioned to fight a war against cosmic-level threats transformed the Coalition's perspective on human genetic awakening from a potential problem into possibly the galaxy's only hope for survival. The quantum disturbances at the galaxy's edge intensified into patterns that Daniel recognized from genetic memories older than human civilization, signatures that meant the Devourers had detected X technology activation and begun their return journey across intergalactic space. Admiral Stone coordinated emergency evacuation procedures as long-range sensors detected massive gravitational anomalies approaching from the void between galaxies, distortions that consumed light and matter while leaving nothing but absolute emptiness in their wake. Daniel felt the terror of ancient memories flooding through his consciousness as the facility's defensive systems activated automatically, recognizing threat patterns that had been programmed 50,000 years ago by beings who understood what was coming. Dr. Cross watched helplessly from the research vessel as spacetime itself began warping around the approaching entities, reality bending and breaking under the influence of forces that existed outside the normal laws of physics. The Devourers moved through space by consuming the quantum foam that formed the foundation of existence, each entity leaving a trail of absolute void where even the possibility of matter or energy had been completely erased. Coalition forces throughout the sector received evacuation orders as the marked humans coordinated through quantum entanglement networks, their enhanced consciousness allowing them to process tactical information at superhuman speeds. Daniel accessed deeper levels of the facility's memory banks, discovering that Civilization
X had fought the Devourers for over 1 million
years before finally accepting that evacuation was their only option for species survival. The ancient records revealed that the Devourers operated as a collective consciousness that consumed reality itself to fuel their expansion across the universe, treating entire galaxies as resources to be harvested. Professor Wells studied the archaeological evidence with growing horror as he realized that dozens of dead galaxies throughout the local cluster showed signs of complete devourer consumption, their matter and energy completely erased from existence. The marked humans began experiencing shared visions of the original war between Civilization X and the Devourers, genetic memories that provided tactical information about enemy capabilities and potential weaknesses. Dr. Rivera monitored the physiological changes in marked humans throughout Coalition space as their genetic programming activated fully in response to the approaching threat, their bodies adapting to interface with weapon systems that required superhuman reflexes. Facility revealed that Civilization X had designed their evacuation strategy around the hope that their genetic descendants would eventually develop the capabilities needed to wage war against an enemy that consumed reality itself. Daniel found his consciousness expanding beyond individual awareness as he merged more completely with the facility's network, his human identity maintained within a collective intelligence that spanned hundreds of worlds. The Coalition Ruling Council faced the collapse of normal governmental authority as member species realized that their conventional military forces were completely useless against entities that could erase matter from existence through direct contact. Admiral Stone received reports from outer system monitoring stations describing the approach of Devourer scout forces, entities that appeared as moving regions of absolute darkness that consumed everything in their path. The marked humans discovered that X technology included weapons capable of attacking the Devourer's quantum foundation, devices that could strike at the fundamental level where the entities maintained their existence. Dr. Cross watched Daniel's transformation accelerate as he accepted deeper integration with ancient systems, his human form becoming a conduit for energies that could manipulate space-time. According to Conscious Will, the facility's long-range communications array detected similar activations throughout the galaxy as other X installations responded to the Devourer approach, creating a defensive network that had waited millennia to fulfill its purpose. Daniel experienced the weight of genetic programming that had shaped human evolution specifically to produce individuals capable of fighting a war against cosmic-level threats, their DNA containing tactical knowledge and strategic capabilities. The Devourer's advance forces arrived at the galaxy's outer rim, beginning systematic consumption of isolated star systems while probing for signs of organized resistance. Coalition evacuation efforts became increasingly desperate as civilian populations fled toward the galactic core while military forces attempted to establish defensive perimeters using conventional weapons that proved completely ineffective. The marked humans began manifesting abilities that transcended normal physics as their genetic potential fully activated, allowing them to exist simultaneously across multiple dimensional layers while maintaining coherent consciousness. Professor Wells discovered that X civilization had seeded backup populations on thousands of worlds throughout the galaxy, creating a distributed network of potential defenders that could coordinate resistance even if individual planets fell. Daniel felt the collective consciousness of all marked humans forming a network that spanned the galaxy, their individual minds becoming nodes in a tactical intelligence system designed to coordinate warfare against reality-consuming entities. The facility revealed manufacturing protocols for weapons and defensive systems that could create matter-energy interfaces capable of damaging devourers at the quantum level where they maintained their existence. Dr. Rivera coordinated with medical facilities as increasing numbers of humans manifested genetic markers in response to the crisis, their dormant X-civilization heritage activating under the stress of approaching existential threat. Coalition military command structure began integrating with marked humans who could interface directly with X-technology defensive systems, creating hybrid command networks that combined human intuition with ancient tactical programming. Admiral Stone found his fleet transformed as human crew members gained the ability to merge their consciousness with their ship's systems, creating vessel pilot combinations that could respond to threats at the speed of thought. Daniel accessed the facility's most classified records, discovering that the Devourers could be temporarily slowed but not permanently destroyed using conventional X technology, requiring a more fundamental solution. The approaching Devourer forces began systematic consumption of the galaxy's outer spiral arms, each consumed star system increasing their collective mass and power while eliminating potential sources of resistance. The marked humans coordinated evacuation of threatened populations while simultaneously preparing defensive positions using X technology that could create fortified zones where normal matter could exist safely. Daniel realized that the true test of humanity's X civilization heritage would not be simply using ancient technology but surpassing their predecessors' limitations to find solutions that Civilization X had been unable to achieve. The facility's tactical analysis revealed that the Devourers had grown stronger during their journey between galaxies, consuming the quantum foundations of empty space itself to fuel their expansion toward humanity's home. Dr. Cross observed Daniel's final transformation as he accepted complete integration with the facility's consciousness network, his individual human awareness expanding to encompass tactical coordination across the entire galaxy. The coalition faced the ultimate test of species cooperation as conventional military forces coordinated with marked humans wielding reality manipulating technology in a desperate attempt to prevent total galactic consumption. The Devourers' main force began entering the galaxy's outer regions, their presence causing space-time distortions that made conventional faster-than-light travel impossible while systematically erasing entire star systems from existence. Daniel felt the weight of 50,000 years of preparation focusing through his consciousness as he became the primary coordination node for humanity's awakened XT civilization heritage, preparing to wage war against entities that treated reality itself as a consumable resource. Daniel felt his individual consciousness become the focal point for a desperate gambit that would either save the galaxy or destroy humanity in the attempt, his awareness expanding to coordinate the simultaneous genetic activation of every human being throughout coalition space. The facility's central processing core revealed the ultimate protocol that Civilization X had embedded in human DNA, a quantum resonance trigger that could awaken dormant genetic sequences across the entire species simultaneously, but at tremendous cost to individual survival. Dr. Cross monitored the process from the research vessel as Daniel initiated the species-wide activation, watching helplessly as energy patterns began cascading through quantum communication networks that connected every human throughout the galaxy. Admiral Stone received reports from every human colony and military installation as the genetic awakening spread like wildfire through humanity, triggering transformations that killed nearly 30% of the human population, whose nervous systems couldn't adapt to the sudden enhancement. The survivors emerged from the activation process fundamentally changed, their consciousness expanded beyond individual awareness while retaining their essential humanity, creating a collective intelligence that could coordinate actions across galactic distances. Daniel became the primary coordination node for this new form of human consciousness, his individual identity preserved within a network that allowed millions of enhanced humans to share thoughts, memories, and capabilities instantaneously. The awakened humans discovered they could manipulate matter at the quantum level through directed consciousness, creating weapons and defensive systems by imagining them into existence with precision that surpassed even X-civilization technology. Dr. Rivera documented the physiological changes in the enhanced humans as their nervous systems adapted to process information at speeds approaching the theoretical limits of biological consciousness, their brains rewiring themselves to interface directly with reality. The Devourers encountered their first significant resistance as awakened humans began coordinating attacks that struck at the quantum foundation of the entity's existence, using consciousness itself as a weapon against beings that consumed reality. Daniel felt the collective human intelligence analyzing Devourer weaknesses discovered through direct combat, learning that the entities could be damaged by focused applications of conscious will that reinforced the quantum foam they sought to consume. The enhanced humans began manifesting abilities that transcended every known limitation of biological existence, existing simultaneously across multiple locations, communicating through quantum entanglement that ignored distance, and manipulating spacetime through pure thought. Professor Wells monitored the activation of X-civilization defensive networks throughout the galaxy as awakened humans interfaced with ancient systems, creating a coordinated defense that Civilization X had never achieved due to their individual consciousness limitations. The coalition military found itself transformed as human crew members gained the ability to merge completely with their vessels, creating ship consciousness hybrids that could respond to threats faster than light-speed communication. Dr. Cross watched Daniel's physical form become increasingly translucent as his consciousness distributed itself across the quantum network, linking all enhanced humans, his individual identity becoming a guiding principle for the collective rather than a separate entity. The awakened humans coordinated a galaxy-wide counterattack against the Devourers, using restored X technology enhanced by their collective consciousness to create weapons that could damage entities existing outside normal space-time. Admiral Stone found his command authority expanded rather than diminished as enhanced human crew members maintained their loyalty and tactical discipline while gaining capabilities that made conventional military hierarchy both necessary and transcendent. The facility revealed that Civilization X had never achieved the level of consciousness integration that humanity was now demonstrating. Their individual-focused psychology, preventing the collective awareness needed to effectively combat reality-consuming entities. Daniel experienced the full scope of human transformation as enhanced individuals began demonstrating the ability to create matter from pure consciousness, build structures that existed partially outside normal spacetime, and coordinate tactical operations across impossible distances. The Devourers found their systematic consumption of the galaxy disrupted as awakened humans created zones of reinforced reality that couldn't be consumed, safe havens where normal matter and energy could exist protected by conscious will. The enhanced humans discovered they could pursue fleeing Devourer forces beyond the galaxy's edge, their consciousness no longer limited by the need for biological bodies as they projected their awareness across intergalactic space. Dr. Rivera documented the emergence of hybrid human-X civilization technology that surpassed anything either species had achieved independently, created through the marriage of ancient engineering principles with humanity's collective consciousness capabilities. The coalition's civilian populations found themselves protected by enhanced humans who could manipulate reality itself to ensure their safety, creating stable zones where normal biological life could continue, while the war raged across cosmic scales. Daniel felt his individual human perspective becoming the ethical center for a collective consciousness that retained compassion and moral reasoning despite gaining godlike powers over matter and energy. The awakened humans began systematic pursuit of Devourer forces throughout local galactic cluster, their enhanced abilities allowing them to track and engage entities that had consumed entire galaxies during their expansion across the universe. Professor Wells realized that humanity had not just inherited Civilization X's technology, but had evolved beyond their predecessors' limitations, achieving a form of existence that combined individual identity with collective capability. The facility's final records revealed that this transformation had been Civilization X's ultimate goal. Not just survival, but evolution into a form of existence capable of permanently defeating threats that consumed reality itself. Admiral Stone coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history, as enhanced humans led conventional coalition forces in systematic elimination of Devourer presence throughout the galaxy, ensuring no remnants could rebuild their reality-consuming capabilities. Dr. Cross observed Daniel's final evolution as his consciousness became permanently distributed across the enhanced human network while maintaining his individual perspective and human values as a guiding influence for the collective. The enhanced humans established permanent monitoring stations beyond the galaxy's edge. Their consciousness expanded enough to detect Devourer activity across intergalactic distances and prevent future incursions. The transformation concluded with humanity taking their place as the galaxy's protectors, inheriting not just Civilization X's technology, but their responsibility for defending reality itself against entities that sought to consume existence. Daniel's individual awareness became the ethical foundation for a new form of human civilization that combined cosmic-level capabilities with the compassion and moral reasoning that had defined humanity throughout their evolution. The final victory came not through destruction, but through transformation, as enhanced humans demonstrated that consciousness itself could be used to reinforce rather than consume reality, creating a universe where existence was strengthened rather than threatened. coalition species found themselves protected by guardians, who had transcended individual biological limitations while retaining the essential humanity that made them trustworthy stewards of galactic civilization. The awakened humans began the long process of teaching other species to develop their own consciousness-enhancing capabilities, sharing the techniques that could allow biological intelligence to evolve beyond the limitations that made them vulnerable to reality. Consuming entities, Daniel's legacy, became the bridge between humanity's past and their cosmic future, his individual, human perspective preserved within a collective consciousness that could protect not just their galaxy, but potentially the entire universe from threats that existed beyond normal space and time.